So, breaking news that I wanted to talk about for a minute in the Colin Gray case. If you're not familiar with the Colin Gray case, this is the Apalachee school shooting from a couple of years ago down in Georgia. Colin Gray was the shooter. He was the dad of the shooter. His son killed four people at a Northern Georgia high school in 2024. And Colin Gray, who's the father, was convicted earlier this year of second-degree murder for failing to stop this tragedy. And he got 15 years in prison at his sentencing. That's the breaking news portion of this. Colt Gray, who's the shooter in this case, already got 80 years. People have a lot of feelings about the Second Amendment, but I think this is the perfect time to talk about the Second Amendment, but mostly about how our society and law enforcement system's working currently. More to the point, it's not working. Over and over and over again, when we have these school shootings and I have to do talking heading on it, whether it's radio, TV, or whatever, almost every time we have a mass shooting now, whether it's a school shooting or a public space shooting or whatever, we find out that the person that did it had warning signs and fell through the cracks, quote unquote, although there's no such thing. I remember supervisor used to have, he said, there's no such thing as accidents because there's always a sequence of events that led to this stupidity happening, and that's not an accident. Well, that's what's happening with these school shootings. In this particular case, Colin Gray, who just got sentenced, actually testified that he was a drug user, that they weren't attentive to the kid. He was specifically convicted of buying him an AR-15 style rifle and letting him have it unsecured, even letting him keep it in his room, even though he knew that the kid had psychological problems and was having fantasies about violence and so on and so forth. You can read the case for yourself, but that's the nutshell of it. And sure enough, the kid, who had really screwed up parents, who had a really screwed up home life, who had shown all kinds of exhibits of needing massive amounts of help, went to a school and killed a bunch of people and shot 9 others. Over and over and over again, we're seeing adults and other people not stop these things from happening. So yeah, it's a good thing this father got charged. The Second Amendment is an inalienable right. You have a right to bear arms and defend yourself and own a firearm. We can debate the finer points of that, but it's in the Constitution. It's not going to change. Having that right, though, comes with responsibilities. And if you are a responsible gun owner, which every gun owner I know of that's a decent functional adult will use that line, responsible gun owner, understands it means exactly what it says. You are responsible for that weapon, whether it's in your home, in your person, if you leave it in your truck, if you leave it somewhere else, you're responsible for it. And if you have children, you're really responsible for it. I was raised in West Virginia, very rurally. Weapons are just a matter of course. We all hunted. We all had guns from a young age. It would blow people's mind. When I took hunter's education, which is mandatory in the state of West Virginia, we just brought a weapon to school and put it in our lockers in a case, and then took it out of lockers and went in the same classroom we just had science class in, and the DNR officer came in and taught hunter safety education course and firearm safety course, because you had to have that to get your hunting license when you turn 15. We brought a gun to school, put it in our locker, stayed there all day until we had the class. Now, that would blow a lot of people's minds, but nobody thought anything of it. It was nothing when I was a kid. For, you're going in the wood, take a pistol with you. It might be a bear or something. You want to be able to. We grew up around firearms. Not everybody did. I understand that. Some people find firearms really scary. I understand that too. Here's the one thing we should all agree on. If you're an adult and you have a legal firearm, you're responsible for it. And if you have a child that goes through difficulties, and I've had children that went through difficulties where we had to lock stuff up to protect both them and ourselves while they overcame those things, and they have, and they're doing really well. You can't have a weapon around people like that. You can't have weapons around children that are struggling. By the way, adults, there's been times in my life, I've had some dark periods of time, I shouldn't have had a weapon anywhere near me. And nobody should have let one be near me. Now, I've worked through those things and we have safety features. But look, you go to my dad's house, weapons are all in the safe. He's got a big gun safe. Has a big sticker on the front of it that says faith. The things that are unseen, because he has that kind of sense of humor. But I was raised to respect firearms. If you pick up a firearm, treat it like it's loaded, whether it is or not. Even if you clear it, don't point it at things. It's a tool. It is not a toy. I can hear that clear as day, and my dad talking in my ear. These sorts of things, like this father getting convicted, is important, but I think we should go further. I think we need to start holding accountable law enforcement people who don't properly investigate and properly do background checks on people, because we've had mass shooters that had background checks that were improperly done. I'm not saying everybody needs to go to jail or be up on charges, but there should be some accountability. Prosecutors who let things slide and don't stop things, they should be held accountable. Medical professionals, school counselors, people who don't report when they ought to report, they need to be held accountable. Parents need to be held accountable. Family members need to be held accountable. In short, everybody needs to be held accountable. Now, people are going to go, well, you don't know what's ever. I know that. And our libertarian friends will scream and yell and call me names. But here's the thing with a society: much freedom comes much responsibility. And part of that responsibility is understanding that if something is wrong and somebody is a danger, they didn't just quote unquote slip through the cracks. Colt Gray didn't slip through the cracks. He had drug addled parents. He had parents that gave him a weapon. He had people in his life that didn't get him the help he needed. And then he made a decision, which even though he's a minor, he is still responsible for. He made a decision to take all those issues and self-marinate himself in them until he became a murderous weapon of violence himself. The AR-15 was just a tool. He was the murderer. He was the shooter. He should have never had the weapon. And it is good and proper that the adult in this situation, the father, was charged and had a fair hearing and was convicted and is now going to be serving 15 years in prison, a little less. And Colton's going to spend the rest of his life in prison for the horrible crime he committed. Now, is that justice? No. There is no justice on the side of eternity for what Colt Gray did to those families, 3 teachers and a student who don't have their loved one anymore. Those kids that now have a trauma nobody should really have imprinted in their brain for the rest of their life, a community that has to worry about a murder in their high school, which should be one of the safest places full of good memories. There's really no justice for that. And his life is now wasted away in a prison cell. He got sentenced to 80 years. He'll never get out. His family's destroyed. His father's in prison now. His mom's a mess. Is that all justice? Not really. It's the best we can do. And it's good and proper that the father has been charged and is now going to go to prison. If you're going to have children, you're responsible for them. If you're not going to be responsible for them, there's methodology where you can sign them away to other people. If you're going to have a weapon, you're responsible for it. And if you're not responsible for it, don't have one. And sure as heck, don't give a weapon to a confused kid who's already got issues when you know you got issues on top of it. And let's call it what it is. The parents' issues became the kids' issues. Don't give them a weapon. And if something's wrong, you got to report it. It's not fun to call the police. It's not fun to have those hard conversations with school teachers and school counselors. And they may drop the ball and not do it correctly, but at least you did your part and responded. And when they do drop the ball, we need to hold them to account, whether it's a teacher, a police officer, a prosecutor, anybody that mishandles anything involving these shooters or potential threats. They need to be held accountable because that's their job and that's their responsibility. The idea that people fall through the cracks needs to get out of our vocabulary, because when somebody falls through the cracks and murders somebody, that didn't fall through the cracks. That is a sequence of events that was preventable if all the adults had done what they should have done. And when we have another mass shooter, we're probably going to find out the same terminology: known problem, known issue. People in his life enabled him to be what he was, or her, or whoever it is. And that is never going to get us anything close to peace and justice in our communities. Cowardice never works, but it sure does enable evil people and incompetent people and people like this great character who's now going to go to jail, whose son will be in prison for the rest of his life, and who's going to have to live with the fact he couldn't get his own demons under control and multiplied how bad they were by being irresponsible with a firearm. I'm glad he's in prison. I hope we all learn the lesson. I fear we will not.